Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Furi. F-U-R-I. I'm not 100% remembering what Furies were, but I feel like the Furies are the like three witches that would punish even Greek gods of the Pantheon, or they would punish people on behalf of the Greek gods of the Pantheon. In at least some of the mythical stories I've seen, or cartoons based on mythical stories I've seen. But yeah, our character doesn't really feel like he quite matches that idea. And I'd also say the other thing I want to point out is I think I am wrong in my thought that we didn't kill the second to latest character we beat. Seems like you cannot walk backwards through the gate. Because he really didn't seem like he hesitated in stabbing the lady sniper we just beat. So the lady angel before that, I feel like she probably had been fleshed too. This is funny because this is like a mature rated game just because it is nothing but violence, I would assume. And probably because it was a small independent game that really couldn't fight the ESRB on getting a mature rating, or at least it's marked mature on the Twitch website, but it noticeably is not bloody or gory. Like, for being stabbed in the chest multiple times, you never see any blood from our main protagonist, and we never see any real blood from any of the other characters. Which, at a certain level, if this is supposed to be inspired by those samurai films, perhaps the spaghetti westerns, perhaps just old Japanese samurai films, which I think there's a little bit of a difference between those two genres, you would expect to see some level of blood being depicted. If not huge splatters and slashes of blood. In the same way that the Chinese karate movies would have characters with powder on their weapons or powder on their clothes, so every impact, every hit.
What would you do if you had an eternity to do nothing but wait? Do you keep busy? Do you daydream?
You can only walk so far into the water.
He trained.
So we're not getting any indication here of how long you've been in prison, but it seems like living in these artificial worlds maybe does just keep you alive forever. There's no deeper explanation as far as food and clothing and things like that. It almost makes sense to say that each of these jailers were injected with the DNA of our protagonist, and it made them immortal, and made them less than human. That would kind of make sense. And then we've got some cinematic Dutch angles with the camera. Again, you saw that in one other of the walking sections.
Nothing else matters to him but this fight with you. This will make his day, his life. Mastery of his art, fulfillment of his destiny, and all that nonsense.
Yeah. All of these characters feel like they should be idealist, but only some of them are. Some of them are clearly crazy. Some of them are definitely tricky and trying to cheat. The last character we beat, they said she was a cheater, and I was thinking that was because of the sniper things, but in retrospect, after thinking about it for a second, it probably was because of the drones also shooting at you. Yeah, it is somewhat more cheatery to have a bunch of drones and make it a non-one-on-one fight. you're just clipping through this. You can't actually interact with this. Again, it would feel like you should look in this bag, and in this bag it should give you some item that would increase your damage or your health or something. I'm thinking what's going to be awkward here is I'm going to beat the game on easy, and then the only way I could possibly beat the game on normal is if they give me the same amount of rounds for the enemies with just a little less health, that I could probably account for that, or they give me more rounds that are just repeated versions of the rounds I've already fought, because you can't really practice on normal mode if they threw in a new kind of attack pattern round. And this bunny guy is not talking at all. He has really nothing to say. There really is just not enough story for there to be anything to be said, because we don't know about
so into
our main character.
Nothing else matters. I tried so hard to stay and finish my work for years. But you know what I could never forget? Her laughter.
So we know the bunny guy has left his daughter for years now, which implies to me she'll end up being a boss, or a secret boss. Although, if this game has secret bosses, I don't know how you would actually unlock him. The only thing you could possibly do is win a battle without taking any damage at all, and that's pretty impossible unless they give you a battle where you can not take damage. It would almost be interesting, since we had that one boss with an angel appearance to her, although the technology element really supplementing the angel appearance. If this was a twist revelation on the story, if the character we're playing is say a Jesus parallel on in the desert fighting the devil, or coming down from heaven and fighting devils that are trying to stop him from reaching Earth and returning. But the problem with any kind of interpretation like that might be an interesting twist is that I have zero faith that the makers of this game could pull off a revelation like that and make it really worthwhile. You'd have to reevaluate every single boss and think that every single boss was supposed to represent the 7 deadly sin, which, you know, some of that might make sense, but then you think about the first 3 bosses that you fight and it's just insanity and wrath over and over again. So yeah, like the sewer guy maybe was supposed to be, I don't know, pestilence, but that's not a 7 deadly sin. Pestilence is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, so that doesn't even make sense. And who would be sloth? And who would be greed? Or you would have to give them specific angelic names and try and make a comparison there. And I don't think that's really the case. If anything, I think this story almost might parallel a story that I'm not familiar with as far as Buddha on the road to enlightenment. But you could probably stretch most stories to fit the general concept of learning a lesson and becoming enlightened. See, here we can see several samurai swords on this holder, and it look like lanterns that he was slashing through and practicing. So this really is lining up to be a more one-on-one traditional samurai fight, I think, compared to the sniper in the shooting. Although I actually know from the screenshots and from seeing other people play this game that this goes in a very different direction, in that it becomes 2D or 2.5D instead of 3D, which is too big of a shift. Looks like our next protagonist is, or antagonist, is going to look human.
I was concerned you wouldn't make it this far.
He looks somewhat similar to our main protagonist, but maybe that's intentional.
This is a big day for me. I've been waiting a long time for this moment. Let me show you.
Yeah. Inherently, as we go further, they want to make these humans look
Now I will show
more.
you what I've learned.
They want to make the humans look more human, but they don't really have an animation style that works with that.
Come on, get back up. You can't give up now.
And see, this, I'm wrong, this isn't the 2D part, that must be the next cycle. This guy seemingly is moving faster, but I think really either I'm not warmed up or they've literally just slowed me down. He's hitting very hard, to say the least. But there's one cycle down.
You move well. You're reading me quite quickly.
See, now
Let's see how predictable you think I am now.
we are on the 2D platform.
You have more strength than you think. Stay with me through this.
See, that was just like way too easy. Way too easy once again on easy mode. And as he's spinning there, the screen is tearing in the visual element. So this game doesn't even look as good as it really should. Very much a samurai. Swords clash and then the guy takes a while to realize it and fall down.
Oh, incredible. Amazing. What I just saw here, it was magical. And he was probably the toughest one in here.
Interesting.
I could never have done this without you.
So we're potentially done with all the bosses now. And it's just way too easy. So I do want to probably try normal mode. But at any point I could see playing normal mode and just rage quitting halfway through. Yeah. What the game really needs is on easy mode to have some automated cutscene versions of the game. In fact, I would say a lot of games probably would benefit if there were Cliff Notes versions of games that were modded, where the game would just play itself, and it would take the in-game animation and just play it back with a tool-assisted speedrun effectively. Particularly in this case, if entire rounds were like that, and it just went into an auto mode, and you would just be able to take your fingers off the controller and rest for a round and watch our main protagonist just kick the butt in a very cool way, a pre-recorded way that the best of the programmers or game testers can pull off. There's a lot of games though that would benefit from that, particularly older games. Like, you take a game that's 5, 6, 7 years old, not selling that much outside of its launch window for many years, and then you make a automated Cliff Notes version of it where you can be guaranteed that you can just press a button to let the game play itself and see the credits and experience it in a different way. It's not really that's really only going to increase sales. It's not going to have real gamers wait 5 years to play a game for that version, and it would make it certainly more welcoming.
Dedication, training, willpower, and yet they fell one after another. There is no justice in the world. No second chances, no hand of God. We can only trust in ourselves and hope it's enough.
On the other hand, since I imagine...
We're almost there. This time it's true.
Since I imagine we're not doing any big religious themed twist here, it might make more sense to have mentioned God a couple more times, since, although really this does still feel like a game where you're being asked to define your own morals, your own personal morals. Is it right for this character to kill all these jailers for his freedom? What is freedom really worth to a person, or should you just lay down and accept it? So it really is more of a philosophy theme that is being very lightly sprinkled over this boss rush fighting game. At a certain point, it almost should be like the trolley problem, just being different scenarios being thrown at you over and over again. Or at least the first boss, antagonist, perhaps should have mentioned that idea and said, is it worth it to kill one person for your freedom? What about 2? What about 3? What about 4? What about 5? Inherently with each level, it is asking you, is it morally acceptable to kill one more person? Of course, you're already down that path, so once you commit the killing, it's fairly easy to just stay committed to killing.
Ugh. Well, this is a warm welcome.
So it looks like there's actually just air conditioners here causing the snow to happen. There's still far too many little sections like this where it feels like there should be an Easter egg or an achievement or some item to pick up, some collectible, like collectible art in particular would really make a lot of sense. Concept art around this character. It almost would make sense if you were collecting cutscenes that would have been flashbacks to what happened before you were imprisoned, so that you unlock the true backstory of this character you're playing as after you beat the game and see the credits, but only if you collect all the cutscene items too. What would be annoying, however, is if I do get to the credits and then they say, actually, in all these walking sections, there are collectibles.
Why did they let her join? How many were they prepared to sacrifice? Don't get me wrong, she's part of this. She's an overconfident, idealistic child who dreamed she could save the world.
I wonder.
Let me be the last wave. I will stand when the rest have fallen.
I wonder.
She's amateur, short-sighted, plain stupid if you ask me.
Is he done talking yet?
What a waste.
No. I wonder if this is actually going to be his daughter, the bunny girl's daughter. That would make some sense. But it would also certainly imply that the bunny girl, the bunny guy here, is losing his humanity with every new defeat, and that he is transforming in his mentality and his morals. It almost makes sense that to imply that each of these walking sections took years and years, and it is being sped up for the benefit of the viewer. Just taking an entire year to walk downstairs to go to another world would be quite the journey. It almost has a Dante's Inferno feel to it also, where potentially our character is just going down to yet another level of hell. Although in comparison to Dante's Inferno, they did make a Dante's Inferno. They put a lot of money and effort into making a Dante's Inferno game and didn't sell particularly as well as they would have liked it to. Not enough to justify continuing it as a trilogy to do Dante's what is it? It's Dante's Inferno, then the second book in the trilogy is Limbo, I think, and then the third book is Paradiso. And so you start in Inferno and Hell, and then you work up to Limbo, and then you work in the story to Heaven. But yeah, it's kind of hard to make a game set in Heaven. Who are you really going to fight? Angels?
But don't be fooled by her. She's dangerous. If she was a pushover, she wouldn't be here. She's treacherous, and she's fast. And there's something in there that is meant to stop you for good.
If anything, I'd say we're arguably getting too many female antagonists for comfort. But yeah, it's kind of hard to complain about there being too many female main characters in games when so often there aren't main characters who are female, or antagonists in particular who are female in games. I think they're doing it specifically to hope that you would sympathize as you go down the journey more and more with the characters that are being defeated. But honestly, if I was trying to tell this tale, I'd show a lot more blood. I'd have them crying out in pain. I'd have them grunting and suffering with every slash. It would be painful. I'd probably make a game almost unplayable because I would try to make it painful for the player to progress forward. I'd make them take mental control and authority and the blame for every action.
One last time, the jailer is the key. Kill her, and you will be free.
And this is just the last boss battle. Yeah, I'd have it pause and make you press the A button to kill her, and put a prompt right at the front, right at the bottom of the screen that says kill her, or kill him, in each single battle, as if it's implying that you could not hit the button and not kill him. But I'd make the player know that their action is going to actually kill the person and take responsibility for it. Of course, that's not really in line with what this protagonist is. This protagonist, for all we know, may have zero comprehension of really what he's doing. He may be 100% living on instinct and animalistic thoughts and ways of thinking. And he's, at least in some philosophies, justified in his actions because he's being imprisoned here.
You're not what I was expecting.
I'd say in part the problem with introducing what looks like a hockey player with sonic attacks in furs is that if she's going to have sonic attacks, then why couldn't some of the other characters have more sonic attacks. Alright. So once again, they've kind of broken what the game is and instead set up what is really just more of a dangerous section where you just have to get good.
They're counting on me. Go back.
And in this case, it didn't even like push me back, which is kind of what I was expecting to have happen.
To let you go out? That is a fate worse than death.
Alright. So again, she has a phase. She has 3 phases. And apparently letting me out is a fate worse than death. You'd almost want to see them imply that...
Are you really? Why are you here? Why are you doing this?
That you almost want to see it implied that they would be severely punished or killed by their own people if...
I wanted to be here. Where else would I be? Here is where I can make a difference.
if they fail, and that they aren't just being...
Yes, I am paying the price for my people's freedom, but it's worth it.
That they all seem to be volunteers, and they all seem to have a very noble mentality to their actions.
I look at you and I don't understand. We're so alike.
Again, it all just has kind of a feel similar to something like My Hero Academia or One Punch Man.
Please.
Like, she's actually begging, and I feel like that should have been the case the whole time. And so throughout this whole process, she's down to her last sequence, and I only took 1 health bar, so even if I was playing on normal, I think I probably could have made it here, unless they make the game more difficult in some other way.
Stop! You can't go out there. Don't you understand? With you, our world withers and dies. You are the end.
So are we supposed to believe what she's saying? I don't really see a reason to. It would make perhaps more sense if somebody provably lied to our antagonist, our protagonist character, the character we're playing as. The first jailer lied, so then the other jailers would be suspect and untrustworthy.
Hold my hand.
So it looks like our character
This is it, my friend.
might actually
It's
have
hard,
been
I
affected
know,
by that, but not
but
by
she
much.
was the last. Finally, going through that door. It's everything we have been fighting for.
Again, I feel like
You
if
are
there had
not
been...
who you were when you first landed out there. We all have choices to make. We all have to decide what's worth fighting for.
Yeah, that's pretty much the loose theme of the game, is what's worth fighting for. Was your freedom worth fighting for and killing all those people? But yeah, it definitely felt like, had there been a cutscene where she just straight up took a pause and it stopped you from being able to fight, to think about what she was saying and say, hey, if you go to our world withers and dies. The problem here is that for a lot of players, I could imagine they just wouldn't have believed her or cared at this point. And so they wouldn't have given any thought or hesitation as far as, do I not walk through this gate? At a certain level, you are now somewhat free from jailers. So you could take your pick of any prison world and stay there and have a freedom of multiple prisons. But that's not much better than just being stuck in one prison. Inherently, you want a freedom to go anywhere you want to go and really decide your own choices and interact with the rest of the world. So here's the real world, and you can see it all kind of has a bit of an Overwatch feel. This is also the model of the real world that we saw the bunny at. So normally in video games you would go towards the tower. The other option would be to go towards what looks like a village that way. Or we could go over there to the ocean. It doesn't matter where you go though, because as soon as you start to walk, you see your true nature. You are effectively death incarnate, something toxic to the world that exists here. And with every step, you spread a toxic aura that is seemingly killing everything in its path. So, you now know why you were in the prison. But is it your fault? Are you doing this intentionally? Do we know anything about the protagonist at all? Maybe this is just his natural state. Maybe this is just nature happening. Do you blame a cold virus for infecting humans and killing humans? Or is that just how the world happens to work? Although, inherently, I am more intelligent than a cold virus probably is, and I'm choosing to walk specific directions. This, if anything, speaks more to the compromised mentality and morals of the rabbit character, in that he is willing to unleash this horror on his world, all to just see his daughter once more, assuming she's even still alive, assuming she would stay alive. It almost feels like there should be an achievement for actively seeking to kill whoever is in these buildings, seeking to destroy everything, every bit of this world, of this humanity that enslaved him. Like, when is vengeance righteous? Is it ever righteous? To what level of vengeance is rightful? And see, the game is just going to fade to black as we get to the credits, or get to the end of the credits. It looks like. So maybe I should have walked to the tower instead. Maybe that would have been a little bit more interesting. I'm not sure though if you can really take too much from all of that. It's a reveal, but it hardly is he was a ghost all along, like the Sixth Sense or anything like that. It's they basically told you this is what was going to happen, and if anything, I would say the game, instead of making me feel upset by this reveal or in any way emotionally involved by this reveal, I think this game has more lulled me into being emotionless like the protagonist. I really don't care if this Earth gets destroyed. There was never a point where they showed anything of this Earth worth saving. Like, it now says thank you for playing Furi to the end, but I kind of don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure there's at least one more boss battle that was added in an update later on, unless it's in the DLC that I didn't buy. Yep. In a lot of ways, I feel like this game has a general concept, but it needs a rewriting and a second pass as far as... And see, now I can move and run a lot faster. So with a faster speed, can we destroy a significantly larger amount of the world, and how much of the world is really necessary? It would only be right. Honestly, you can't do anything to the water if you came upon the bunny guy and his daughter, and the bunny guy and his daughter begged for mercy, and you gave him none, and instead killed his daughter and the bunny guy just as much as anything else. You'd almost expect the bunny guy to be a final boss, and in him being a final boss, he would think that he's strong enough to defeat you. Let's see what happens if I increase my armor. Does that do anything? Yeah, they wanted it to be a very slow cinematic experience for the credits, but if you're really just going to revel in what you would call the glory of destruction, of vengeance here, you would definitely want this to be a much bigger experience, a much faster experience. Of course, you're in a catch-22 here where you're effectively just mowing the lawn, and if you do all of this and you don't get an achievement, it's gonna suck, and if you do all of this and you do get an achievement, it's going to suck. Let's see if any of the buttons otherwise do anything. Like, you don't have A to dash. At a certain level, maybe the reveal in the walk and talk sections could have been this, that the grass would just die as you walked around in between each battle, or that there would be slight hints at things dying around you. You could show the worlds where the boss battles happen dying after you defeat the bosses, and then it would hint that the worlds just fall apart when the bosses die. There's a obvious line here. Still really no secrets or anything to find. And so this is really ridiculous to go this full direction, and it does just feel like there are going to be areas that you won't be able to reach regardless of what you try to do. I'd say this is about as far as it should have gone, as far as just mowing the grass and killing things, to get at least a hint that there is an achievement around all of this. Otherwise the game is really just encouraging me to be too obsessive without enough feedback to justify this level of obsessiveness. Of course, the other problem is that there could just be a rock somewhere. What you need is for this creep, this death, to expand and creep slowly on its own, so that you could potentially just encircle some areas, and through the process of encircling some areas, it would slowly get the sections you missed. Alright, so is this really worth it? There is a game that is almost exactly like this, where you draw squares around a box and it reveals more of the area. That is a 2D picture reveal game, but you could make it a 3D experience, certainly, where just drawing a square would kill off everything. Just having something encircled would have it die. Again, there's really no checkpoint here, so if we were, like, yeah, if we were going to engage with trying to kill everything, and there really wasn't an achievement around this, that the easiest thing would be to check the achievements. So let me just do that. Yeah, that's just pause and then see if I can get my mouse cursor to go to my second monitor and just see what the achievements are. Global achievements, ones that haven't been finished. Hidden achievement. Let's see. Click to show spoilers. That's the new thing. Have to be able to actually read it. Apparently there's a ranking system. Yeah, there is a whole ranking system we haven't even seen. And then there's a beat the game in 2 hours and 12 minutes. That is great as an achievement, because that tells me I really don't need to try and get the achievements. Defeat a guardian without taking any hits. That's almost certainly going to be impossible too. Alright. Well, a quick scan here seems to imply that there isn't any secret achievement for doing something stupid like infecting the whole world, but maybe there is a small chance that that there is a boss that would unlock from doing all this. There is an achievement that says assimilate the whole world, but does this look like assimilation? The phrase assimilation really only means one thing to me, and that's Star Trek Borg concept. But yeah, it really is asking way too much if I'm supposed to run around and do all of this section, making sure to get every single little bit of plants, and then cross this bridge and do all this section. There is a game out there, almost certainly, where it would make sense to have more of an open world section like this. And see, this world feels way more natural than any of the other Unity asset flipped worlds. So I could see wandering around this world and having minion enemies show up and just having to fight them in the grass and grind and practice attacks that way. And weirdly, I can't cross water, so kind of seems like they could have just put me in a ocean world and put me on a tiny island, and then nothing could have happened to me. If you were supposed to poison everything, there's a chance that you actually do have to walk around the edges here, even though it's not really showing a change. Yeah, it's having a creeping effect, but it's not a creeping effect, it's a shadow effect that's happening from, I assume, the sky. I assume we're supposed to be going to this big tower, but let's go check this other building. That did something. So this is where the bunny guy was with his microphone. And there's his daughter.
So now you know. Maybe you think I'm insane, or maybe you understand. You were my only chance. I hoped it would change you. I think it did. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is what you are going to do.
So the bunny guy seems to be of a darker skin tone. Several of the characters came off as if they were black, darker skin tone, more diversity. So that gave me an achievement, my only chance. Yeah, and I just can't really believe that this guy wouldn't just go destroy everything here. And if the bunny guy happens to be here, then destroy him too. Like, we don't know the motivation of our character, so I have to just assume he is a mindless killing machine. And I'm assuming, with corrupting all of that, I've either immediately killed the bunny guy and his daughter, or I've set them up to potentially starve to death or be corrupted. It's interesting how there are blades of grass here, because as far as we can tell, the protagonist here may just think of these humans as insignificant as a human would think a blade of grass is. I'm killing thousands upon thousands of organism life of some sort, and if you don't value human life particularly high, killing the grass is probably just the same as killing a human. In the same way most humans don't value cows or chickens. The shadows almost imply that if you just got the shadows encircled, that would do something. But I don't know if it really would. And there's just not any other characters to interact with, so we'd have to be introduced to new characters at this level. We walked over here and didn't see anything. I don't really expect to see anything there. So that once again just leaves us moving to this tower. Is this tower a rocket ship? Was our rocket ship perhaps immovable as our character seems to almost be? Is this our way to leave the planet? Or is this rocket ship or this tower some central government, central authority, central city, some target of some sort? This almost seems like it's an obvious cave, but apparently it isn't. So walking around the back side of this doesn't seem to be doing much. Obviously something is supposed to happen here though. And if this is supposed to be our landed rocket ship, these trees look like they're potentially decades old, if not hundreds of years old, which maybe means you've been in prison for a very, very long time. They basically were implying that. There's almost a failure in humanity here that they, in that entire time, had what felt like about 10 jailers sacrifice their lives and then developed no other defenses otherwise. Why didn't they perhaps destroy those rings that probably were used to return so nobody could come back? Why didn't they put more barriers? Not that it seems like any of them would really have stopped you. Maybe humanity is incredibly lightweight on people these days, and there seems to only be a couple of them on this island. Maybe most people just left the island, and that was the best defense they could think of. But why not, say, bury a bunch of bombs? So if he came back, you could try and blow him up. So through the door we go. And there's a cutscene. Could I beat this game in 2 hours and 12 minutes? Almost certainly not. Maybe this is the defense. Nope.
Acquiring Ryder. Resuming flight plan.
So you have this whole sci-fi mech outfit now, and we've left the planet. So are we going home, or are we turning around and shooting at the planet? Like, so far we've only potentially killed an island, not the entire planet. There's our different worlds and prisons. It almost feels like each level should be the equivalent of a planet, but what would a Jupiter level really look like versus a Venus level versus a Mars level? I guess you could probably come up with something creative there. Again, I don't believe this battle was in the game originally and got updated, and that would certainly be the point where they added stories. This wouldn't be the first time you have a Japanese written or Japanese inspired game that where they don't really want to tell much of a narrative, and then the fan base basically demands an explanation as to what's going on. In this level, I think it's going to do all the heavy lifting as far as explaining what's going on. You can see there's a bunch of clones in this platform. So it seems like you're a clone, effectively a first scout, or one of maybe they thought they only needed one guy to conquer all of Earth. Probably would be helpful though if they indicated that you'd been flying quite a long time from where the satellite was compared to Earth, because if this is just in near orbit of Earth, why hasn't it attacked with more clones? Uploading planet report.
Ryder. Let's see your report on your target planet.
And again, this is going to set me up to
Uploading planet report.
get a bad ending where I don't get a fight.
Results inconclusive. Proceed with manual confirmation. Confirm planet assimilation.
So we can either say A to confirm that the planet's already been assimilated, or B to cancel invasion and attack the mothership. Which, if you say A, it's probably just going to assimilate the whole planet and you're going to get an achievement for that but not get to fight. So let's go with B. Cancel invasion and attack the mothership. And so you have to hold it down. But either way, you're probably going to have to play the game a second time to see the other ending.
Warning, Ryder. Deactivate your firearms. Ryder malfunction. Activating security systems.
So you've got drones again.
Neutralization.
This is all very Star Fox-esque.
Ryder, you have changed. Why is that?
Right. The problem here is it feels like you're moving incredibly sluggishly. And looks like I have a stronger charged weapon.
What happened during your last mission? I can't let it happen again.
But I guess the idea is probably want to line up these two until you take out a couple of these. This is just incredibly sluggish though. And there's just like no, there's no, like you can dash, but can you charge and dash at the same time? No. See, the regular attacks just don't feel like they're correct. And so we're at the end here.
Ryder, you have changed. Why is that?
And probably just gonna have to turn on invincibility mode. Not really getting anywhere. I think you probably have to take out all of these guys first before you can even begin to attack the face, because the hands just don't seem like they're doing anything otherwise. There's just kind of a hard lock
What
here.
happened during your last mission? I can't let it happen again.
Now, inherently, they may have just made a problem here in that they encouraged me as a player to... There.
This is between you and your conscience. You know who should win this fight. What matters?
Whoops, I guess I was supposed to listen to that. Alright, so let's just turn on invincible mode. And then check the invincible mode commands. And let's just play that way, because I really don't care. So invincible is now on, so we can just enjoy doing massive amounts of damage with them being unable to do anything about it. We'll see what we can really learn from all of this. It does look like if you could just dodge enough damage, you probably could, through the hands, attack the boss. But even on Promenade, the easiest of difficulty, you can see there's just a lot of attacks going on here. And
You have changed. Why is that?
so that's one
What
phase
will you
down.
gain by fighting us? You think they will welcome you? They will have no idea of what you did. They don't even know we exist.
Now, I'm still invincible, so potentially here I'm not taking any damage, but honestly I'm just also clipping through things.
They said you corrupted their world, but they corrupted you.
And then I have a whole sequence here that is knocking me down. That being said, it doesn't look like there's any damage I can really do until I either take out these drones or the hands. I mean, this really is just the Star Fox 64 final boss fight. Complete rip-off / modernization of what that would be. Which, in all fairness, I can't blame anybody from stealing from the ideas of Star Fox 64 when that's the last Star Fox game Nintendo's made, so... It is just weird, though, that the
For them, you will remain a
blue
stranger,
knocks you
a
back.
danger.
Now, morally, if canonically, I would say we should have just continued the assimilation process and not fought this guy. And so, I think what we'll do, and I know we're going along in this episode, and once again, I could have stopped the episode at the 30-minute mark and made a second episode, but whatever, we're almost done with this phase. Once we've gotten those two hands gone.
Will you destroy us to save this world that is not yours? You leave us no choice, Ryder. We will annihilate you.
So, the question really would come down to, are you destroying it to save this particular world, or are you destroying this to save all worlds, or many worlds? Because it doesn't seem like their plan is to stop at just one world with all these characters. There's no explanation as to why the mothership has been programmed or is doing this, assuming it has been programmed. This is another case where if you get off the cycle, if you break the cycle and end up falling somewhere, it's going to be really hard to attack. And there's just no sword swiping here at all. It's all shooting.
You might have saved them this time, but who will protect them next time? That's the worst delusion. Believing you can have a lasting impact.
So, with this ending, you could almost be seen as the new Superman protecting Earth from outer space, falling into the same kind of delusional way of thinking that all the other jailers had, that they were noble and what they were doing was right, when maybe what they were doing was right, maybe it wasn't. And in the end, because I defeated a greater threat, by killing those 10 people, or however many jailers there were, I saved the entire population of this planet, and potentially the entire populations of entire other planets. So I am a hero, if you're just counting by numbers. Those, retroactively, those murders are justified. Yeah, so that's the problem. Certainly with philosophy, that's a problem with philosophy in general, is you can never really know, and you can certainly interpret things differently. Finish the game in promenade difficulty for a real challenge to unlock the speedrun mode, and the Furier difficulty. Why not play the game on normal difficulty instead of easy?
The jailer is the key. Kill him, and you'll be free.
Okay, so if we hit continue here, let's see what this is. This is just the beginning of the game. Again. So, let's just go to invincible mode, turn this on, check the invincible commands open so we know how to skip entire fights. I mean, I suppose if you were to skip all the fights in invincible mode, maybe you could then beat the game in 2 hours and 12 minutes, but I don't think they really should give you an achievement for skipping all the fights. And see, even that is, while that was the good ending, it doesn't particularly feel like it was a good ending. Okay. I have only 3 health there. What difficulty am I on? It says invincible mode is on. Unless I'm in practice mode somehow. It says skips fight entirely, story mode only. And even now, the timing has been lost for this guy because it's just different, slower probably, than the timing for the other characters. This parry system also really encourages that you take some level of damage, so if you really were trying to take no damage, parry mode is kind of opposite that idea. Wonder if I just have to straight up lose to get back to a promenade mode so I can skip all this. Or if it's just a case that this first tutorial boss battle just doesn't allow you to skip. Or the game is just so poorly programmed that it thinks invincible mode is on when it isn't. Because yeah, really if we look at the top right, it's not saying promenade mode at all. And it's not saying invincible mode. So they are just going to make you, as the player, do this whole section for no real reason. Yeah, that's an example of like the charge slash. You're supposed to have done that with each of these slash attacks, but
This has been fun, but it's time to
it
get
doesn't
serious.
really work that way. And even though this guy does have like 6 phases,
They really hurt, don't they? Well, that was nothing. I'm gonna teach you some real pain.
I don't know if I'm supposed to do something here or just wait. Ideally, you would have wanted this to be more of a bigger budget game where they would have multiple attack animations for the Punisher attacks.
You ready, you baby?
You would think that this would be the guy that you would take no damage on if you were going to fight anybody that you take no damage on, but honestly it's probably the time traveling guy that you would more likely run into. It's still very easy to try to break a cycle and fail at breaking a cycle than it is to figure out the exact actions you're supposed to take.
No way. Come back here. I will take you down.
See, his swing back is kind of unique.
Let's do this.
Sometimes it feels like also you're just taking out a little bit extra damage because the game wants to be generous to you.
See, even
It's
your
just-
fucked up breed can bleed. I'm gonna drain you like a pig.
It almost feels like maybe on a second playthrough you might get more story, but I don't think there's enough of a justification there to play the game a second time just because they potentially hid some story in the second playthrough or a higher difficulty playthrough. More likely it's really just a case of there's a few lines of dialogue you might have missed if you beat the level very quickly, which a lot of these bosses we did beat incredibly quickly. You see him changing what he's attacking is not really fair. Inherently, if the general idea is this guy being particularly cruel, dragging you by your hair, if the idea was that they were just going to keep you in a cell forever, that really wouldn't have stopped the other people from attacking the mothership from sending another rider or two. Looks like they could fairly easily have a couple sent, and if two riders don't come back, send 4, and just keep on doubling the number of riders. And it does seem like they barely survive with even 1, so I really question if I am actually in easy mode right now, though. This seems like more cycles.
No way. Eat this.
That just needs a double dash, I guess. I'm really struggling here. Let's just try something here. Invincible mode off, on. We'll go off, we'll resume, we'll go. Invincible mode on, resume. And that didn't really do anything, but it did give me a second to rest my fingers at least.
You're gonna take some putting back together when I'm done with you.
Yeah, again, it's just another poor decision of game design to introduce a invincible mode and then have the very first boss battle not allow you to actually use it. So if I was trying to practice on any of the boss battles, I still have to grind through this guy. One more cycle and then we've got that long cycle. And it's only really at this point you start to get the 3 cycle, but the 3 dash attack is unique to this guy.
You're going back. There is no way you can defeat me.
See, now this is just straight up the bullet hell stuff, and the bullet hell stuff in this game really didn't amount to enough. Arguably, maybe this game was just a little too ambitious in some of its attack sequences and what it was focusing on, when really it would have been nice if they had just a little bit more story to go focus on and talk about. Just a stronger story overall. We just have to wait until he's not orange. Yeah, it's another 15 minutes. Just unnecessary. I almost wonder if in a second playthrough, maybe you're not going to even see the rabbit guy, which might slightly recontextualize the story, but only for the worst.
You will be broken. You will go back to yourself.
Yeah, he's this guy dressed like a Japanese
Excellent.
Oni.
What a thrill. Not your first time, right? Anyway, the good news, we're one
So
step
he is
closer.
here.
Way down there lies a free world. A world of peace and light, where you're free as the wind. And you know what? We're going to get there.
Honestly, I should probably just pause the recording at this point and see if we can skip over this whole section, but yeah,
I'll tell you
we'll
what
just
I know on the
highlight how much of a
Don't expect all
miserable
the answers.
scenario it's going to
It's
be,
all about
even
what a
in
man does.
invincible mode. Like, it is what a man does is the general theme of the whole game, but they really don't bang on that enough or give you any real moral choices to imply that you had any other options. You either go forward in the game killing people or you don't, until the very end.
That, my friend, is a prison. A prison within a prison. A very clever trick.
Now, if I can't skip this boss battle, then I would have to assume I'm not in promenade mode, and I need to just die to be in promenade mode.
You and the
I
prisoner
don't
have a
really
common
have any
goal.
desire to try and
She
beat the
turned up
game
one day,
on normal
destroyed
difficulty,
everything in her
because
way,
if I did
and
beat it
then
on
bang,
normal difficulty,
she got
it would just then be the next thing, which is to beat the game on hard difficulty. And I couldn't even beat the final boss without going into invincible mode. I probably eventually would get good enough to be able to beat the boss on normal difficulty, the final boss, the mothership, but yeah, it's not worth the time. And that's a little unfair, certainly, because there is just a good question as far as, could you make enough boss battles in any game to be that interesting that you'd want to beat them over and over again? Like, personally for me, the way I've played games, like Resident Evil 4 is probably the game I've played the most that has boss battles in it. And there are definitely a decent amount of boss battles that are very unique in Resident Evil 4, but it has never really motivated me to try and beat Resident Evil 4 on a harder difficulty just so I can fight the bosses a second time or third time. If anything, most of the boss battles in RE4 are pretty terrible. They're average, I guess, for one of the greatest games ever made, in my opinion, but
That's why we did what we
yeah.
did. That's why we're getting out. That's why our story doesn't end like hers.
he just stopped walking on the auto walk. suppose I'd never really been into fighting games, so if you were doing like Mortal Kombat, any of the Mortal Kombat games, you would be fighting the same bosses and enemies over and over again multiple times, which I actually do question that, how many people actually do stick with fighting games and go through story mode more than once with each character at most. Let's go and skip this, and let's just hope that we can see. I must just not be in invincible mode. I mean, in promenade mode. It's not showing a promenade mode, so I would assume that is the case. So the temptation certainly is here to just keep on playing. If anything, there is a bit of a kiss off in this character in that she is a heavy hitter. You can see she's taking 2 squares pips of damage with her laser beam here. See, and again, it would just be nice if she kept the amount of damage when I die instead of her being reset, or at least I should get my health refilled when I win a round, because that would just be fair. If I'm not making it obvious, I'm intentionally letting her kill me to get the prompt to go to in promenade mode. But yeah, there is that prideful temptation certainly to just try and beat the game on normal mode just to show off. But it would be hours and hours of more gameplay, and it's just not worth it. I question heavily, I'm not certain I would want to see a Furi 2. Like, you could create 10 more superhero-like characters, but they definitely would need way more backstory, way more personality, way more characterization. If anything, I'd kind of like to see...
Now. We're on the road to freedom. You will beat her.
Yeah, if anything, I'd like to see it. There we go, skip the fight completely. And skip the cutscene. So I was in normal mode that whole time.
You put her out of her misery.
Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this gets rid of any of the walking stuff. There's just like no way
She crashed
to walk
through one
faster.
day, frantically searching for something. They couldn't make sense of her. She was so wild. So they put her in a cage.
This does
Then you came
imply a
along and they did
world
even
that where
worse. Way worse.
she
It all went so
could have been
wrong.
an invader too, or she could have
But
been
we are
looking
going
for
to
you.
make things right again. Together.
Honestly, I would prefer, if you were going to make a Furi sequel, to actually show the backstory of these characters and make it actually a prequel to the first game. Like, you can't really update this game that drastically. You could, but people would be taken aback from it, and a lot of people would just never recognize that if you added a ton more content to this game. Even though they already have added quite a bit, I think. I think that last fight and the invincible mode were all added in an
Can you
update.
feel it? It's like
It's
a dream.
terrible
The
as an
breeze,
update mode.
The peace.
A skip level
Feels
mode.
like we could take off and leave this place behind us.
And I imagine the practice mode would be better if you had unlocked the practice mode.
But you know
I
better.
don't think
Nothing
we did
is what
unlock
it
anything
seems.
for beating it on
We're
the
stuck here.
promenade
The
difficulty,
real world
the
is
easy
somewhere
difficulty.
else, down there.
The biggest hope here they're wasting all this time, would be to fight the bunny character. But even if I do fight the bunny character, I have very little emotional energy to put up with a fight. I probably would just go in invincible mode and defeat him without even trying. So, just on a basic level, since we see at the end of the game you have a button choice of press A or press B, hold it down to make a decision, they really should have been training you to make those kinds of decisions first and foremost.
Why didn't he stop it from happening?
It would make a lot of sense if the jailer's
But look where we ended
first
up.
option would be to kill him or spare him, and then if you spare him, he'll just try and attack you again, and then you end up killing him, or kill him or wound him or kill him or go back to the jail cell. Like, going back to the jail cell as a prompted option that early in the game wouldn't have been a big problem, particularly if you'd made a checkpoint where
He'll try to play it
you
cool.
still
Easy for him.
would
He chose
could
to be here. But
continue
we are
after
definitely
that
not
point
cool
without
with
fighting
this.
the jailer,
We are
the first
getting out
jailer
of here.
character, a second time. Although I've fought him like 3 times now. But then our second lady here, which we assume the jailer is male, and we assume it's pretty obvious that
Time to
the
move on.
robot
Across his path,
lady
my
is
friend.
female
The jailer
presenting,
is the
at
key.
least. So we should keep a count and see what the male to female ratio really is here. But yeah, with the previous lady we just defeated, you could have seen an option of freeing her or killing her, and maybe freeing her would just have her run away, and then
Welcome,
you could
stranger.
probably have that
I've been
spare
looking forward to this
kill
moment.
option for every case.
I foretold you escape, but not how far you would get.
It would be interesting, I suppose, if you had a game where you spared,
Time is
go ahead and skip
a
this.
picture in motion.
You spared people, and by sparing them, the final boss just gets more difficult over and over again.
There is no fate. We build our own destiny.
So that would be 2 male to 1 female so far.
Our man on the rocks, he knew a lot. He even figured out why you were sent to us. Look at the sky, he kept saying. The dot on the sun.
We obviously know what that is. Now, not that it really changes much that we do know what that is. This is such a nightmare. I have to still do all the walking. Yep.
Take a good
I
look, my
clearly
friend.
wanted to waste your time, you
Years of
can
evolution,
tell
culture, civilization,
with all this.
great intellect, wonders of nature. Bam! Wiped out in one single impact.
So
One.
this is what you do, and I guess this is being shown as far as this is your corruption in this area, and then they
Searched and searched. A solution
took this
and
area
answer,
and made a
anything.
world out of it, or made a
Just
arena.
some hope, you know, that I could fix this, fix him, so my plan would be flawless.
The problem with this, though, is this
But
isn't
I never found a
showing that you're killing things in this case as much as you're just terraforming things into something different. Because these glowing grasses are just not in line with the grasses dying and turning into nothing at the end of the game.
For the rest of my days.
And the fact that your corruption seems to have corrupted this next fighter in some way
I don't know much about
doesn't imply that you're just killing.
I've heard some bad stuff, and what I've seen, well, yeah. But we have one thing in common, you and I. We have nothing to lose. For every day we are locked away up here, we have nothing. We've lost.
As a very good speech, certainly for
One thing
gamers.
about Fish face up there.
Like every day you're
contaminated.
not
I'm
able
not
to
sure
play,
he's got much to say.
you're losing,
He probably can't even speak at all anymore.
or the general mentality if you're
does,
not winning, you're
Just
losing.
ignore the crazy babble.
Oh, I would so be happy to trade all of this away for just your generic wandering around the forest grinding on enemies instead. So we really don't see how he's infected.
I've thought about it for so long.
I'd say these buildings that they're showing here in this
Destruction of the
world seem
on one hand,
fairly different from the buildings we see on the other
what about
world.
my world. Why should their world be more valuable than mine? I made my decision. I will free myself. Whatever the cost.
It definitely feels like if you took the bunny's helmet off, you would just see a crazy-eyed psychopath behind it. On a second playthrough, it would make so much more sense to just move the teleporters closer to the arenas.
I know this is hard, but when I am struggling to keep faith, I think about the beauty of the world beyond.
Alright, so that should be... Now we
It
fought
keeps me focused. It keeps me going.
2 male characters and 1 female antagonist character. Nope, we fought 3 male characters and 1 female character.
You
Assuming
were
the
captured,
fish guy
thrown in prison,
was a male,
tortured.
which I'm going to assume.
Finally, you escaped. And here they are, those guardians. Hand-picked, top of their game killing machines, just waiting to throw you back in. How does that make you feel?
You know, come to think of it, this is not
Kill you
too different
already
from
because they can't.
No More Heroes.
Believe me, they
And
would if they
yeah,
could,
I would say
without blinking.
No More Heroes does it
Second best for them
way,
now
way
is to
better.
put you back in chains.
In part, I would say No More Heroes playing it on the Wii with the Wiimote is a very unique experience with the sword slashing attacks and charging up your light beam by jiggling it up and down
Feel it.
in a very phallic action.
Good. Focus on it. Let it
But
grow.
what No More Heroes does is it's a fairly rough and definitely uglier than this game. It's probably a game
Let
from
me
a
tell
few
you some
years
more about
before
what
this,
one did to you.
but
You need to know.
in
Then
between
there'll
each
be
of
no
the big boss
stopping
fights,
you. He is the one who
you
got
have
you
to
here in the first place.
earn money
He is the one
And to earn money, you have to do a bunch of really dumb mini games, but the really dumb mini games do lead to you having some falling action, having just more of an experience with the game. Now, in fairness, I'm sure there are some players out there that would just love a boss rush mode for No More Heroes, and if something like that had unlocked after the first time, that would have been fine. But for the first experience, to have story and have minigames in between each fight really makes it a much better experience compared to this. And yeah, I would even say there's a problem with the gun aspects, and that maybe they should have focused solely on sword fighting. Sword fighting is inherently difficult to program and do right by. It almost feels like you should have a custom.
Man, that was intense. But you've got to move on.
See, in this building too, just doesn't look like the buildings on Earth. Because it's all just Unity asset flips.
The things we do for love.
Yeah. For a game that...
This one, upstairs.
Now, if I somehow accidentally trigger the extra ending here, I'm gonna just rage quit at this point and not show the other ending.
She even got me locked up. You're going to see her.
I'm gonna turn on the auto walk.
All this nobility and
you know what? I'm not gonna even risk it. I'll turn off the auto walk and
just trying to clean up her mess.
Move.
Just remember,
manual.
She's messing with your head. Don't listen to her.
Yep. A pretty cool game in which you play a section, a chapter of the game as each of one of these heroes, fighting against weaker enemies, coming together to form potentially a team at the end, and at the very end you see this Furi Ryder character showing up, and then it just would directly connect to that first boss fight, or the fight that would have defeated the Ryder.
Stay with me. Why are you leaving? What's not to like here?
Yep, she says stay with you.
I have no other choice, and you even less than me.
Whereas everybody else said go back.
How dare you shun me?
So 4
down all of this.
males now, and 2 females being defeated.
This will eat you up inside for the rest of your day.
Yeah, and I do believe he actually killed her.
I did not expect that. Not from you. I think I saw you hesitate after the last fight. You, of all people. Why would you ever hesitate? It made me think. I like it. It gives me hope.
So in this case, I guess the question comes down to, do we count him as a defeated boss?
Worlds were built from here by a genius.
Probably not.
A perfectly designed masterpiece of a prison. This
It's probably easier just to say 4 guys, 2 females so far,
many times to find some
as far as the
way out of
antagonists
here, but there wasn't
go.
one, except for you.
There's also certainly a line here in that while most games don't even want to have a 50-50% ratio between male and female antagonists, females in general tend to be the species that can be pregnant, so it would be far too mature a decision to not cause a controversy if, say, the previous antagonist angel lady claimed to be pregnant or was visibly pregnant and you killed her. Whereas there is a real unfairness there in which games are being held to a different standard and censored.
I know what you're thinking. There's a thin line.
Whereas a samurai movie
Madness.
would,
Time will tell.
an old Japanese samurai movie would probably be very allowed to show an evil samurai
Go ahead.
character
I'll be with you in a moment.
slicing down a pregnant lady. But that's not even the real reason, though, that the breakdown happens with it being so high in the number of male antagonists. It's just
like me. She's clever.
generations
She has a
after
plan.
generations, as far as nobility,
On
have
a scale of 1 to 10,
implied that you don't
and
hit
she'd give
girls,
herself
you
a
never
12.
hit girls, but you can hit boys, which that was a terrible, terrible message to be told to generations instead of just don't hit people in general. And in fairness, it was never really followed as an idea. There's plenty of examples and occasions of girls getting hit. But video games definitely
Range 200 meters. Capacity
get rated
maximum.
more if there are a lot of female antagonists.
Heart rate 8.
And unfairly to a lot of people
Maximum
of
speed 73
older
kilometers per
generations,
hour.
it does just feel
No
more
structural
brutal.
damage. Analyzing DNA. Error. DNA unknown.
We're just still taking forever.
for her it's all a game. But losing is not an option.
10 meters. 5 meters. 4.
So this is what the auto walk would be.
1.
So we're up to now 4 guys and 3 girls. It's kind of a shame you don't ever really get a full look of what this character looks like. Which again, maybe that's something you could reveal
Assuming manual control.
in a prequel. Which yeah, I would think a prequel would be way smarter to go with this game first. Try to expand the universe and flesh out the story.
But we are not the kind that rely on probabilities, eh?
Then you could
We rely
potentially
on
make a
what's
trilogy
in
by
here.
having a sequel.
We take our chances.
Although, with the 2 ending options, it's very difficult to have a canonical ending, and which one would be the canonical ending, I suppose. Like, no, you could very easily say the canonical ending is that you defend Earth and you become a defender of Earth, a Superman type character from planet Krypton, and then you could just bring in 10 new invaders
He trained.
to Earth, and then those 10 new invaders would be on a spaceship, and in the spaceship there would potentially be a holodeck, and each holodeck would be its own arena, if you really need those elements at all. I'm not sure you really need the different worlds elements. In a lot of ways,
Nothing else matters
it
to
may
him
be a
but
case
this
that
fight with you.
this really just feels like
This will
10
make
separate
his day,
game
his
pitches
life.
being
Mastery
added
of his
together
art, fulfillment of his
and
destiny.
sold as
All
one.
that nonsense.
Because you definitely could have had this where everybody was in the same environment with the same art styles, or you would have maybe 2 or 3 different environments, but on one connected planet.
How can someone get so into something that nothing else matters?
This might be a case where
Tried so hard
even
to stay,
Japanese,
finish
the
my
dialogue here makes a lot more sense. Japanese in particular is a very subtle language, so there's a lot of room to interpret more, and then there's also a lot of room to say more because it's a little bit of a quicker spoken language compared to English. So it is possible that we really just have a situation where the English dub here is a very basic, lackluster dub, and the Japanese audio could be way better. Let's see if we can try that out and see how that sounds. Are we gonna get the subtitles though?
随分と時間がかかったな。ここまでたどり着けないんじゃないかと心配したぞ。
Definitely seems more appropriate.
今日は私の大事な日だ。私はこの時をずっと待ちわびていた。見せてやろう。
Yeah, it does seem like this is probably the original language,
学んだことを披露しよう。
it is just a little bit better emoted and voice acted in the lines of dialogue, but I don't know if the lines of dialogue really are that different as far as what's being said word for word. I think it's probably about the same. With that, we're at basically 6-3.
信じられない。素晴らしい。今のはまるで魔法だ。おそらくあいつは最強のガーディアンだった。お前がいなければ成し得なかった。
I think he said Psycho Guardian there. Just, yeah, an English word, a borrowed word, phrase. So it may very well not be translated right. And the rabbit-eared guy does sound much crazier, and that's probably the right way he should sound. You know what? Come to think of it, I think maybe each of these characters might be a parody of an Overwatch character. At least some of them seem like they are. So maybe there was some secret work as a second-party developer that this developer worked on Overwatch and then got taken off the project, or maybe they just had some affinity or hate for Overwatch characters and thus killed them all.
なぜ彼女を仲間にした？一体何人を犠牲にするつもりだったんだ？勘違いするな、彼女も犠牲者だ。彼女は自信過剰、世界を救うことを夢見る理想を追い求める子供。最後のウェーブは私は最後まで立ってるとさ。彼女は素人、目先のことしか考えないただのバカ。
See, he said baka there, which is Japanese literally for idiot, not stupid, but I could see localizing it to stupid. It's not that big of a localization difference. This character in particular just doesn't make sense at all. I thought she would do some kind of sonic attack that would push me all the way back, and I'd have to do the dodges a second time, and maybe that happens on higher difficulty modes. I don't know. It kind of sucks that you can't skip to this point and then raise the difficulty up, even if that wouldn't unlock a new mode, just to practice. But yeah, as a character, it definitely makes more sense that she would actually be the daughter of the bunny guy. Or that by some surprise she reveals herself at the end to be the daughter of the bunny guy and he didn't realize it was the case. That would not give you a good ending. I'm not sure any of the characters in this game though deserve a good ending either. So I guess take that as an element also. Kind of sounds like he said, kill her and you will be free, not kill her and you will be free. Of course, I don't fully understand Japanese, only a very small amount of it, but if you hear a sound said twice, you would expect that the words are either similar or being repeated. It almost would make sense to have a fighting game with the Overwatch characters, although at this point I don't think anybody really cares about the Overwatch characters. Yeah, she basically never uses the sonic attack again, and her hockey stick does nothing in the entire fight. She just uses it as a switch to turn on the final attack, which just fails. And yeah, you can just skip that whole fight, so. Let's see. So 1, 2. I half expected him to hold her hand, or to give you an option to hold the hand, and then you could be betrayed that way too. I could see it being a case where every time you show any kind of kindness to these jailers, they try and betray you and defeat you anyways through some dirty trick. And you're just constantly being encouraged to not trust them. I assume the rabbit head is to like imply that he has lost his humanity completely. But yeah, you definitely could have said hold her hand, and then if you holded her hand, she would try to attack you, and then you'd end up killing her. Alright, so let's just try this time as fast as possible. Do the absolute minimal amount of damage and only kill a little bit of grass. But yeah, you can notice here that the grass is just disappearing. It's not turning into the swamp plants we saw earlier. So it seems like it's basically a 6-to-5 ratio of male to females, almost 50% 50. And then if you consider the mothership AI looks female, then it's an even ratio, which is quite an accomplishment. On top of that, it feels like at least 2 of the characters are dark-skinned, which, yeah, in the United States, about 20% of all the population is African American or of African descent, dark-skinned, so That's a pretty good ratio too. In fact, it's probably better than a lot of other games that go too far in the other direction. You would perhaps have to debate a little bit as far as if any of them were Asian descent characters. It's a little bit harder to tell there. It's an interesting thought, certainly, if can we make it to the spaceship before the credits end. They're crediting all the music here, but I'm not sure if this isn't just Unity's asset store where they get the sound effects and music, and they just licensed it directly through the asset store instead of a more direct partnership of making unique music for this game. It would be very easy to make sure that the credits end before you get to the spaceship one way or another, either going to black or just putting it at a far enough distance and then slowing down the character so that they couldn't reach it in time. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it. It's fading to black, but I don't know if it always fades to black right at this point, or if it's fading to black because we were getting too close. I'm just pushing in that general direction with the analog stick, even though I don't think it's actually walking me any closer. So often in criticizing games, I am left wanting more, and that Furi really leaves me wanting more, but not more of what it actually served, so you're in a weird situation there. I guess it always ends right about there, so they did just put the building far enough away from you that even if you were trying to speedrun, you couldn't make it to the building before you saw the credits all the way through. Yeah, I want more backstory, I want more story, I want more characterization, I want more boss fights, and I want more variety in the boss fights. I want the game to be a little bit easier, but not as easy as the promenade mode, and I want all of the quality of life features that I suspect were added in an update, such as practice mode and level skips, to just be polished in a very different way. Yeah, both Platinum Games and Grasshopper Manufacturer are being thanked here. Grasshopper Manufacturer making the game No More Heroes, Platinum Games making the game the Bayonetta series. Two things that definitely feel like they have an influence to this game, and yet two things that are probably older than this game and do it way better. Right. Let's go ahead and skip that. And you'd half expect that this would lead to a different boss fight.
Welcome back, Ryder. Let's see your
This
report
final
on your
boss
target
fight
planet.
in particular is particularly terrible
Uploading planet
because it just
report.
doesn't control well. I definitely would want to see better controls.
Results inconclusive. Proceed
overall.
with manual confirmation. Confirm planet assimilation.
Alright, so we're going to press A and hold A now and assimilate the planet. Let's see what that does.
Planet assimilation confirmed. Launching invasion protocol. Activating troops.
You can see they all look somewhat similar to him, although they don't have long hair like him, which that may just indicate how long he was a prisoner. And so here's your bad ending. Honestly, just as valid an ending, if not more valid of an ending, because they really give no hints that the player should care and should, for some reason, not just continue his mission of assimilating and taking over the planet or seeking out even petty revenge. No rank because you changed the difficulty level during the game. So apparently there could have been a rank there. Because I guess it started me on that other mode. On normal difficulty mode.
We all have choices to make. We all have to decide what's worth fighting for.
Okay. As far as loading games, there's still really no way to save. I never saw a way to save, so it's crazy that there is a load game option. Let's just look at this part here you'd have to buy, and I really have no reason to buy this at all. Like, that sounds like a complete waste of money. Then we have a practice mode where you have different names for the characters, which is somewhat interesting. The chain, the strap, the line, the scale, the hand, the song, the burst, the edge, the beat. On difficulty Furi. So you only get a rank if you beat them on the difficulty Furi anyways. If I hit Y here for artwork, there is concept art, but the concept art is hidden behind certain ranks, which means you just have to get really, really good at the game, or download a save file that has 100% of everything unlocked. Yeah, and that just doesn't seem worth it. And really it is just one concept image that they've broken up into different parts. These names don't feel like they have as much of a meaning at all. It definitely feels like each one of these people needed to say, this is what I live for, this is what I'm fighting for. The chain saying, I live for pain, I live for inflicting pain on you, this is what I love. Now with a crazy character like the strap, you'd have to be more subtle about it. But if each one of these people banged on the idea of, I'm choosing to live in this world, I'm choosing to do this because I love something about this world, because there's something to live for, that would help paint a better picture as to why to spare Earth. When left as it is, you just have your, let's see the full number here, 10 plus the final one, 11 antagonists with the mothership, giving you 10 reasons to not spare the Earth. Just, yeah. They do bang on that idea, certainly, with the Hand and his son, which that theme gets repeated with the rabbit guy. which seemingly you never get to fight him, or if you do get to fight him, he is potentially something that only unlocks once you have the hardest difficulty unlocked, I imagine. Yeah, Onimusha character, I don't think has anything to do with the Onimusha game, ONNIMUSHA, or maybe there's an anime called Onimusha. I've heard that phrase, certainly. Okay, well, I am done with Furi, and yeah, unless they tried to make a prequel or tried to use the same characters and really flesh it out a lot, I don't think I'd ever play a Furi 2. It's just too lackluster in its polish as far as story. It's not quite polished enough in its boss battle sequences either. So there's just a lot of rough edges on this game. Now, the good news here is that there definitely was an alternate way this series would have ended. And that would have been that there wasn't an invincible mode and there wasn't a promenade mode, and I would have just rage quit and not even made it all the way to the credits. But thank goodness, I guess, for that update and small favors. As far as achievements go, there are, let's see, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14 achievements out of about, I think it says 33 that I haven't unlocked. So there would definitely have to be a lot more work put into this game, and this is just not really the style of game for me that I'd want to put that extra work into it. Well, we've gone way too long, 2 hours and 12 minutes in this last episode, where every other episode has been 30 minutes, and yeah. Even if I had broken up this episode into 2 parts, the last 2 episodes still would have been double the length of every other episode, basically. So that happens always. A lot, at least. Yep. Well, that's it for Furi. I could end up repeating myself, but I think I've had my say. So that's going to be it for the series. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. There are also social media links if you want a backup way of following me. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.